And welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 124. Today we're going to be talking about the seasonal change photo challenge that I set 2 weeks ago. What was it 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, I think. I wasn't here last Sunday, and my sense of time has gone quite sort of strange. Yes, we disappeared to Whitby for a week, me, Maggie and Meg, and it was rather lovely. That's Whitby on the North Yorkshire coast, on the east side of Britain, or England even, on that part. So yeah, that was fun. But it does mean that we weren't here. Yeah, so I'm kind of feeling, it's weird, it was only 2 weeks ago, feels like an awful lot longer. So anyway, here we are, live on YouTube, unless you happen to be watching the recordings. So in which case, if you are watching live, then do leave me a comment, say hello, tell me where you're from, especially if this is your first time here. Yeah, we'll make a start. So yeah, I can see we've got a couple of comments in already. Jack says, good morning everyone. April says, hello everybody from a sunny Long Island, New York. Nadia says, hi everyone. Maggie says, hello everyone. Meg says, good afternoon everyone. Karen says, good afternoon from a darkening Shipley in Yorkshire. Stacy says, good morning all. Cooler temperatures today, only going to be in the 60s. Murphy says hi. Oh, that's Robert. Says howdy all from Texas. VG says good evening everyone. Robert says the temperatures are in the 60 Fahrenheit there as well. So Stacy, yes, Stacy's been away for a while. Really good to see you back, Stacy. Rosemary says good morning all from a starry clear Washington State. April is surprised that Texas is that cool. And Peter says good afternoon all from Annan. Yeah, so here we're in Castle Douglas. It's wet and wild and windy out the window. Right, what are we talking about? So a couple of weeks ago, I decided to set a challenge for seasonal change. Basically, it was the idea of, here in the Northern Hemisphere, and this part, certainly in the European part of the Northern Hemisphere, it's now autumn. And so there's change in the air. Leaves are changing colour, mushrooms are sprouting up, it's getting colder, weather's getting more unpredictable. And so could we possibly capture that? And I gave a few ideas, and we've had about 10 people or so send in various images. So I'm going to look through the images that we've got, and now I just need to change that and take that off, and yeah, that's fine. Now we can probably work with that. So we're going to take a look through some of the images, all the images that were sent in, and look for kind of inspiration. We'll talk through them, and I think it is. There's a fun part about this time of year to get out with your camera. So I can see what people have done, and maybe we'll feel a little bit inspired by it. Right, okay, so what are we going to say? Oh, something else I want to chat about as well is the idea of what would you like to see on these podcasts? It's called Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres. I am Kim Ayres, but it's about helping you to understand your understanding of photography, how to improve it. And really, I've been doing this for 2.5 years, thereabouts. In fact, almost exactly 2.5 years, I think. But there's a certain random element to it. I started off these, I think I started off, with the first sort of 6 to 8 weeks, had a fairly structured approach that I sort of started off with the idea of cropping, talked a bit about rule of thirds, talked about diagonals, talked about leading lines, talked about converting to black and white. And I had a few of these things. Some of these things I've repeated since as well. But after that, it kind of got a bit random. I've talked about various photo shoots I've done, but there is definitely a kind of, the random element is that pretty much from week to week. Occasionally I get to think about 3 or 4 weeks ahead, but by and large, these podcasts are a little bit kind of thought up only a week or two before. But this is me second guessing you. Now, obviously you, happens to be whoever is listening to me, is going to have a slightly different idea. Some of you would probably really want to know more about light. Others might want to know more about particular camera settings. Some might want to know about particular genres or particular editing techniques. But I want some ideas. I want you to give me some ideas. What is it you are struggling? What is it you would like to know more about? Where do you feel your bits of photography are a little bit patchy and you would like some improvement in your understanding and knowledge of that? So we've got options here. If you happen to belong to the Facebook group, then drop me a line in the Facebook group. There's a Facebook group called Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres. Type that into Facebook. If you're not already with it, you will find it. I think what I will do this week, at the beginning of this week, perhaps later today or tomorrow, I will put up a post that specifically saying leave your question, or leave your comments, your questions, your the bit that you would like to know more about with photography. If you don't do Facebook for any reason, then email me. So my web address here, Kim Ayres at kimayres.co.uk. So just do kim@kimayres.co.uk. Email me. Let me know which parts of photography you would really like a better understanding of. How can I help? Right? That's basically, I do these podcasts. How can I help you? Where would you like that help? So let me know. And then and if there's more than one thing, that's fine as well. What I'm going to do is I will gather in all the information, kind of collate it, shuffle it around, see if there's some things that a lot of people are after, or just decide that, if I come up with 20 different topics, then we'll just sort of spread those over the coming weeks. So feel free to ask. Please do that. I'll try and remember to remind you again at the end of the podcast if you can do that. Okay. Couple of extra comments. April says, New York is late with changing of leaves. It's just beginning here now on Long Island. Upstate is ahead of us, unable to participate for a good picture that is new. Stacy says, just started here as well. Leaves are only just starting to change, so it's hot until this past week. Okay. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little look through the photos and any comments that people sent. Some people put in photos and didn't really say much about them. Others said a little bit more. I always kind of feel like you're going to put a picture in. Do try and tell me a little bit more about it. It's always that little bit more fun. So what we will do then is we will start with Roy. Now the main thing is, I will just a quick reminder: this isn't a critique week. Next week will be a critique week. But this week isn't. This is challenge, just asking you to put your pictures in, and we'll kind of go through them. And I thought Roy was probably a good one to start with. Let me just do that, because this really is a good, strong sense of certainly what we tend to experience as autumn here in the UK, I think. And Roy said with this one, this is my entry for the seasonal change challenge. I like the way the sun shines through the yellow leaves, but there are still a few green ones hanging on for dear life. And that's it. It's a beautiful colour. It's interesting. It goes from sort of place to place. Different. I mean, I know in parts of North America, New England, Canada, and what have you, you get masses of red leaves. The maple leaves. I mean, there's a reason Canada has the red maple leaf on its flag. Oddly enough, red leaves are extraordinarily rare in this little corner of Scotland. I mean, you occasionally get the odd acer or something like that, which is but it's kind of already red as such. But most of the leaves tend to go green to golden to brown. I don't know what it's like in Yorkshire where Roy is, but whether this is typical, but at this point here, so it's quite possible that these won't go red. For any of you who are in North America thinking, oh, why haven't you caught them when they go red? They may well not. They may just go from this sort of yellow to the brown, in which case the yellow, that golden yellow, is the best time to catch it. And what I really love about this photo is, and backlight, side light, the fact is you've got the light coming through the leaves, and I think that really, it just makes it that bit more magical. So beautiful spread of colour, beautiful dappling pattern, so we've got all the shape, the colours and the shadows on individual leaves, some like this one where the sun is actually coming through a gap and hitting the one side of the leaf, these ones here where it's on the other side of the leaf and we're seeing it through, and also we're getting this lovely dappled pattern of shadow as well. And in fact, to be honest, I think you could do something like that, zoom in there and crop crop something like that, just have a nice kind of strong bit of tree there, but almost kind of, so something like that would also work really well. But yeah, lovely colours there, Roy. So good place to start. Smug points to you for that one. I think that was a nice start there. Rosemary says, Roy, this nails the concept of autumn. Stacy says golden yellow is pretty as well as the reds and oranges we get here. And Meg says really lovely photo, Roy. Okay, so let's move on to Stacy. So where were we? So Stacy sent in this one and said, last year in October I shot this photograph. I take a daily walk at the Pennypack Trust. The trail is over 5 miles from where I start. If I get to this local train track, I have walked 3 miles. The trees line the tracks. As you walk across, you can see the lines. It's a vanishing point, but to me, you can see the changing colours of the trees and the small shrubs that were abundantly green in the summer, and the grass is now brown. The skies change during the fall. I call it gloomy because in the morning it could be bright and shiny, and as day passes, the sky gets very cloudy and the temperatures change rapidly. So this is my challenge shot. So yeah, this is a fun one, I think, Stacy. I'm an absolute sucker for these kind of vanishing point shots and train track. There isn't really one here, not one that you could sort of safely get to at any rate. Dumfries is the nearest bit of train track to here, and you can't go on the line. And at the station it kind of curves a bit, so you don't get these sort of really long, endless kind of disappears forever into the distance shots, which are always fun. So this one then is rather, it does feel like the main narrative point here is the track, but the trees are definitely a part of it, and I think I see what you mean here about the fact that it does definitely have that autumn feel. We've got a nice sense of, over here we've got bits where some of the leaves have just sort of gone completely. We've got a lovely kind of rich spread of colour, got these kind of greens going through the golden and bronzes, a little splash of sort of deeper red there. So yeah, I think that's this and a lovely straight horizon there, Stacy, too, as well. And so the whole thing, I think it works. I think it's a nice photo. It's a good photo of that. So yeah, smug points to you there, Stacy. Thank you for sending that one in. And April says, oh, nice, I love vanishing points also. And Fiji says, a lovely photograph. Right, okay, next on to Gareth. So Gareth sent a couple of photos, and I did ask him if he could choose one, which one would it be, and he did give me an answer. But actually, I thought it would be fine to show the two of them, because this one, first of all, is interesting. So he says a couple of seasonal autumn photos from Wales. It would definitely been the other bits is reply to my question. So this was his first one, and it's brambles. This is blackberries, only they haven't turned black yet. This is just, go back in 2 or 3 days and these will be ripe for picking. As it is, these ones are almost ready, I think. So yeah, you wouldn't eat them when they're red, but yeah, brambles, blackberries, really lovely fruit. Meg and I were out picking them last month, and pick a couple of pounds of these things once they've turned black. And Maggie made us a bramble crumble, which is blackberry crumble, which is absolutely gorgeous. And then the rest of the brambles get put into the freezer, and Maggie will be making us bramble ice cream at Christmas. So that's the plan. One of my favourite points of the kind of beginning of late summer, early autumn is the ability to go and get the brambles. But his other one was this one. So, because when I said which of these do you prefer, he said it would definitely have to be the mushroom one. The detail and texture of it came through better than I could have asked for, and the woody effect of the stalk of the mushroom goes well with the tree bark it's laying on as well. And yeah, I think this is a great one, Gareth. It is. He says so. There's lots of texture here. I love the patterning. It is very, very woody, isn't it? I don't often see mushrooms quite like that, but it sort of sits there in amongst the kind of the broken bits of bark and wood and what have you. So A fun shot that I think is yeah, it's very very textured, and a nice kind of rich array of browns there. So yeah, good all round photo. That I think again, there's a number of different ways you could have done this. If you, I would have been kind of quite interesting to have a sort of secondary shot of this where you have a little bit more context and have a kind of wider shot, unless of course that isn't really fitting with. You know, if it doesn't look any good and you've narrowed in on this bit, then that's fine. So smug points there for you, I think, Gareth. That's a good shot, that one. And I'd certainly be happy if I had something like that. Stacy says, pretty berries. I enjoy blackberries. April says the berries look yummy. Yeah, but you can't eat them till they've turned black, April. Stacy says, I wish we got mushrooms. Not much here. Karen says, love the textures of the mushroom shot. VG says, kind of fairy tale, the brown mushroom woodsy. And April says, nice solid mushroom. So you've charmed everybody with your mushroom there, Gareth. Okay, on to Jack. And Jack says, these are the fall seeds are getting ready to plant themselves for winter. So I love this. Yeah, so what we've got, all these kind of really wispy seeds. You can see how they kind of come out of the pod and they're floating away, and then they've kind of got caught, and there's on another, looks like a kind of pod there as well. Is this, now you see, I don't know my biology at all particularly well. Have these come off this, or have these kind of landed on it? But it's very kind of, you've got all these kind of dewdrops or raindrops or something there as well. So very, very fine, very feathered, very textured. And it's lovely light coming in and kind of catching all these kind of almost gossamer threads there. So yeah, lovely, beautifully textured shot, and nice depth of field as well, I think. So there, Jack, I think we're allowing the background to just sort of fade out into the outer focus, which allows these threaded seeds to just kind of stand out against the background. We get all the rich texture without it being interfered too much with the background, but the background is kind of, with all these kind of little lines, is kind of giving it a nice little echo to stay on. So yeah, lovely shot, that, nicely spotted. Yeah, smug points to you there, I think. Right. Well, Rosemary says they're a little dry there for mushrooms yet. That's in Pacific Northwest, USA. VG says, this is wispy and nicely interwoven. Right, okay, next up we've got Karen, who just, basically, this is awesome. Now, she sent the unedited version as well, and then this is the edited version where she's cropped it in a little bit and given the contrast a wee bit of a boost. But this is fun. I mean, if we go back to the idea of Roy's one, where we were looking at all the leaves, across the trees, what Karen's done here is zero in on a single leaf, which works rather nicely. And again, what we've got rather beautifully about this is the sun is behind it. So it's glowing because of the way the light is kind of coming through the leaf. We can see, where there's bits of shadow on the leaf, but and this really is one of those things that I talk about a lot, and is always worth remembering, is the notion of backlight. The backlight doesn't have to be absolutely directly behind, but it can be sort of off to one side. The point is that the light is on the other side of the leaf, and I always say that backlight is the photographer's secret weapon. If ever you're out there on any kind of day where there's a bit of light, where there's a bit of sunshine or a good bit of slightly stronger light in the sky and what have you, you want to be looking for those options. Is there a way of moving to the left, to the right, going around to the other side of the tree in a way that I can get a bit of backlight onto my subject? Now, obviously, if you're not wanting silhouette, you then need to either have something like this whereby the light is coming through it, or you then need some kind of reflector to bounce some of the light back on. But generally speaking, I think where you can look for backlight is always a good idea. And in this case, what's also nice, again, like Jack's photo, there's a shallow depth of field. So the background here, we've also obviously got a lot more of the way these kind of beautifully coloured deep oranges and golds and browns just create a lovely set in the background. My only and I will also say, Karen, I like the fact that you've got the line going up to so this diagonal goes up into the top corner. That always works well. Just one of those things that you'll notice if you were to crop this in a slightly different way, so that the stalk went to, just below the top or just to the right of the top, somehow it wouldn't quite work as well. It always seems to work better if you can get that line going into the corner. What I would say though is I think you could have extended this out to the right a little bit more. Now I think in your original photo you didn't have enough of that in the crop, so you've cropped that. But if you'd actually taken the photo to allow a little bit more, because it kind of the movement of this is that it all sweeps down to the right, and so with that, almost like when we talk about somebody walking into a photo or cycling into a photo, you want to have room in front of them. And this, because it's got such a kind of forward momentum sweeping down to the right and just a little bit more extension out onto the right side of this photo, I think would have just set it off perfectly. However, like I say, really nicely caught, nicely observed. You've obviously been out there and seen it and managed to what I like is you've zeroed in on it. You've gone, that's one, how do I get that? And then you've adjusted your camera settings, found the light, and then you've really managed to isolate it from the background while allowing the background to enhance the picture rather than interfere with it. So beautifully done. Smug points to you there, Karen. Right, just a wee reminder here that if you are find these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining, and you would like to support them in any way, then buymeacoffee.com is one of the ways you can do it. Another thing, and I will just take a wee little aside here, which is invite your friends or invite people that you think you might be interested. Many of you have come here from PhotoCrowd, and many of those of you found out about it from PhotoCrowd because what I was doing on PhotoCrowd was if somebody liked my photos or started following me, I sent a little message saying, oh, thanks for following me. I don't know if you're interested, but I do this podcast Sundays, 3 p.m. UK time. If you're interested, let me know. However, I've had a bit of a slap on the wrist from PhotoCrowd for doing that. Although I made sure that I only ever responded to people who'd pointedly followed me. They'd had a complaint about being spammed, so they had to say, Kim, stop doing it. So I've had to stop doing it. What this means is that I no longer can use PhotoCrowd to let people know. I mean, fine if you go and read my little bit of biog. That's fine. I can mention that I'm allowed to mention the podcast there, but I'm not allowed to message people anymore to let them know about the podcasts. So what that means is kind of, if we're looking for new people, I need you to get out and spread the word too. So if you happen to know people, come across people who you think might be interested in these podcasts, do let them know about it. It's the more we can grow this wonderful community of ours, the richer the experience will be for everyone, and the more because one of the things I've always said about part of what I love about is it comes up in these challenges is the fact that everybody sees the world in a slightly different way, and we get inspired by seeing the world the way other people see the world. We are kind of limited how we see the world through our own eyes, filtered through our own experiences and expectations. And then when we get to see the world suddenly through somebody else's eyes with a different set of filters and a different set of expectations, our world becomes bigger because of it. We become inspired, and particularly so with photography. So part of what I love about this is that we have a wide range of people from all over the world, from different cultures, different time zones, different environments, and this enriches the experience of all of us. So we need more people. So, do have a think about people that you could recruit. Right, okay. So let's move back then to the pictures. A couple of comments here. Oh, Jack saying thank you. Rosemary says beautiful colours. Karen. April says a true autumn feel with the leaf. Stacy says that's one colourful leaf. Karen says thanks for that. Tight cropping is a bit of a fault of mine. Yes, what's the phrase I use more often? Give it room to breathe. Nick Bath is here and says hello all. Hi, glad you could make it. And April says, sorry to hear that, Kim. And Gareth says, that's a bit of a shame. It was a bit heavy-handed or pressured message you sent. Sorry, it was not a heavy-handed or pressured message you sent. And Stacy says that, sorry you had an issue. Yeah, well, I mean, I think most people, nearly everybody I've ever sent the message to, inviting them to the podcast, has always responded well, even if it's not for them. They've, there's been a wee thank you, but obviously a couple of people felt it was just being spammed. So yeah, slap on the wrist. I can't do that anymore. Robert says, it's sad that Photocrowd is doing that. I found you through Photocrowd and have really enjoyed what you're doing. Definitely improved my photography. Well, I'm delighted that you feel that way, Robert, and it's always a pleasure having you here with the podcast. Right, okay, so let's carry on then. So the next photo comes from, oh, wrong one. There we go, Meg. So this says, hi Dad. Yes, it's my daughter Meg. So Meg was out in the garden yesterday. These trees are at the bottom of our garden. They're actually not our trees. They're trees in the garden. It's not next door. Is it behind us? Anyway, we're butted up against that. Anyway, they've got these big beech trees, and they are now kind of at that point of changing colour, rather laden with the beech nuts this year as well. And she says, I really like the vibrant colours of the leaves on the tree outside the garden. I also really like the sun through the trees and the sky behind. Added a nice touch to the whole photo. So yeah, so she's out there, and we can see what we've got here. You can see the sunlight hitting. It's quite late in the afternoon when she went out. You've got sunlight lighting up some of the leaves here. A lot of these are in shade, but at the same time, we've got these wonderful kind of rich changes of colour. With the beech trees, we've still got some very green leaves in there, and some of them have turned deep brown, and then some of them are kind of, we've got that mix of orange and yellow and some browns. And so there's a fantastic sense of texture here. And I like the fact that there's lots of greens, but there's streaks of yellow, streaks of brown, little patches of sky. But again, I think there's almost a bit whereby you could kind of crop in a little bit closer, something like that, and look for the shape within it. Can you create a kind of, I quite like something like this where you've got this diagonal coming down from the left here and a kind of curve coming up round there. So, sometimes within, when we pull out, we're getting the whole picture, but sometimes you can go that like almost sort of semi-abstract really, and just kind of look for shapes and lines within where you can create kind of curves and leading lines and see how you can kind of draw the eye through. So lots to play with in there, but yeah, lovely shot there, Meg. So smug points to you there for that. All right. So where are we? Oh, April says, me too, Robert. Stacy says, give it room to breathe has become my inner voice when doing photography. Excellent. It definitely makes a difference. There's that feeling, if you just, first of all, if you give it a little bit more room to breathe, you can always crop in. If you've cropped in too hard to begin with the picture, then you've got no room for manoeuvre. Sometimes that's fine. Sometimes you don't need any, you've got everything where you want it in camera. And there is always the problem that if you give it too much space and you crop out too much of the photo, that you've lost too much information and the quality of the photo disappears as well. But generally speaking, I think quite often, if you're ever unsure, that little bit, having a little voice in your head, Stacey, saying give it room to breathe is a good one. It just allows you to just come out a little bit more, gives you that little bit of manoeuvre when you get back to the computer, look at the photos, and then knowing how to crop. Rosemary says, lovely mix of colours, great lighting, Meg. VG says, oh, this is truly sad. I'm very much inspired by you and started to see the world differently. Oh, thank you, VG. So April says, nice photo, Meg. Excellent. Okay, right. So let's move on. So Nadia then. So Nadia sent 3 photos. I said, well, if you only had to choose one, which one would it be? And she said it would be this one. She sent 3, but they were, so basically said some seasonal change photos. And this is beautifully autumnal. Now there's a woodland near us, which this reminds me an awful lot, Dalbeattie Woods. As a part of the path goes alongside. If this was Dalbeattie Woods, then you would have a little loch just off to the left here. But yeah, and this time of year you've got the kind of pine trees in there, but then you also have these beech trees as well, beautifully turning. I just love the colour of beech tree. I love the way beech trees change, how you get such rich gradations of as it goes through the greens and the yellows and the browns. And you've often got all of them, all the different stages on the trees at the same time for a few weeks. So yeah, this is great. I like that. We've got this lovely splash of orange here against the green background, and we've got the path leading us into it. Is that a couple of people there behind the tree? Looks like it maybe is. So yeah, lovely shot there, Nadia. I think definitely smug points for you there. Nadia also sent in a couple of others. This one also works quite well. Again, you've got a nice path here, steps going up the path, sort of lead you in, and then you've got this tree at the background here. I think this is one of those where it feels very kind of almost there's so much texture that it's somewhere along the line I think a sort of slightly softer focus might have worked a little bit better. Or what would have also worked really well here would have been if there'd been a shaft of sunlight creating more depth of kind of a dark and light bit here. But so often we're out there we don't necessarily get the light you want, but it's something to watch out for. Whereas this one, here we go. I really like this one, Nadia, I have to say. We've got, once again, we've got that beautiful backlight. So remember what I was saying? A backlight is your secret weapon. And you can see here just how much that works. We've got these fantastic shadows coming in from the trees, creating these lines through here. This beautiful splash of golden here. Then we've got this really interesting wood here as well. Now, this looks like coins. It looks to me like coins that are being pushed and embedded into a trunk. I don't know whether it is maybe or stones, maybe it's little flat stones that people are pushing into it. I'm sure I've come across somewhere once before some kind of tradition where you get something and people, a bit like when people climb to the top of a mountain or a tall hill or something like that, and they take a stone up with them and they leave a stone, and you get this little cairn kind of builds up. I'm sure I've come across something similar once with a tree trunk on a thing where people were just sort of embedding these little flat stones into it. Is it that? Maybe you could let us know, Nadia. Or is it just a bit of fungus that happens to have come up in a strange way, or just the sort of strange way that the wood has been cut? But it's a very interesting shape for sure, and I think you could have a lot of fun getting in close with that with a macro lens as well, and just sort of bring out some of the textures with that. But I think this is a fun trick. So you've got that, but then you've got this bit kind of almost shading it, almost acting like a guardian around it or something. It's it's a fun photo, that. So thank you for sending those ones in, Nadia. Definitely smug points for you there. Right. Rose. So, Karen, VG says, "Wow, Nadia." Karen says, "Lovely contrasting colours." Rosemary says, "Really lovely group of autumn shots, Nadia. The colours are gorgeous." Stacy says, "Regardless, lovely autumnal shots." April says, "That's so cool with a tree trunk." Karen says, "Stunning light on number 2. Love this." Nick Bath says, "A money tree. I think it's meant to be give good fortune if you put your money into it. I think." Ah, right. Okay. Okay, that sounds like fun. That's an interesting one. It's not something I've seen around here. I'm kind of dragging the back of my memory. And Nadia says they are coins, and there are lots on this woodland. Lots on this woodland trail. Superb. I love that idea. I'll have to look a bit more into that. Stacy says I have one. Okay, cool. Is it maybe something that's more popular in other parts of the world? I don't know, but I think that's such a lovely idea, that. Get back out there with your macro lens at some point. I think you could have fun with that too. April says, "Never saw that before. Unique, very unique." Right, okay, cool. So next up then we're going to go to Robert. And Robert sent us this one. Now, I thought I recognised this photo, but actually it's just a slightly variation on one that Robert sent in a little over a year ago, I think. But I certainly it was at that point Robert sent one from. In fact, he sent two, I think, from different angles. What was interesting about this one was I think he sent one which was much more face onto it, and you didn't have this house in the background. And then Robert sent in a different one where he was closer, lower down, wider angle, but this house was then looked much smaller in the distance and was just sort of poking out from the side, I think, of the barn. And I remember saying something like what you wanted was something in between. The best shot would have been one where you had the barn and then just off to one side you had the house. So the house gave you that reference point, gave you that something. So the house becomes like a supporting role for this. And then again, you've got that beautiful coloured tree as well. And I do believe this is the photo. This is the one that this is. So I guess you would have taken quite a few with different crops and what have you. And I think this is the one, Robert. I think this is a great shot. And now maybe go back and play around with some of the little editing techniques that I was talking about at the time. I can't remember which. It was around something like episode 87, 86 or something. And I think you could, a little bit of vignette, a little bit more, you could bring out a little bit of detail in the rafters underneath here by playing around with the sliders. I can't remember, I do remember I gave quite a comprehensive kind of critique on it, ways of sort of bringing out a bit more, which I think you could do with this. But I think it's a great photo. I really like this. So Robert says, unfortunately there isn't a lot of season change in Texas. It goes from summer to winter in about 7.5 minutes. I love that. Yeah, I can kind of identify, I think. This picture was taken last fall in Tennessee. Yeah, that's probably when we were talking about it. I think it captures the colour change fairly well. The house is almost 200 years old. Yeah, that's another one of those lovely things where in North America, 200-year-old house is absolutely ancient. And here in the UK, 200 years old is, and... different building styles, different I mean, I think the house we live in is probably about 150 years old, but it's nothing special. It's just part of a terrace. Nobody would raise an eyebrow. But so yes, but for you that's a big thing. And I suppose the other thing that is the style of the house, I dare say, the way that it's been built. There's probably a lot going on in the kind of history of that, but without a doubt the main key part of this is the barn. But then with that barn, and you've got of course the faded American flag as well, and this fantastic car inside it. I would just love to get up close to that car, and then not just the car but the old motorbike too. So everything about this is screaming kind of history, vintage, antique, and great colours. It's a lovely shot, this one, Robert. It really is. So definitely smug points to you there for that one. Right, where are we? Okay, Nadia says, thank you everyone for your lovely comments. And Stacy says, taking one leaf off the tree is supposed to give you luck. Is that right? And okay, Stacy goes on to say, I love the barn's rustic red with all the fall colours. Nick Bass says, I didn't know what's that, Stacy. Nice to know about taking the leaf off. Stacy says, the old car just takes you back. Kevin Moore has joined us and says, good morning. So, good morning, US, I think. Good morning, Kevin. Glad you could make it. VG says, the barn and the trees give the feel of autumn, or should I say fall. Well, I think it's definitely, in the UK, it's autumn. In North America, it's fall. I don't know about other parts of Europe. Well, in other parts of Europe, they're going to be different languages, isn't it? Yeah, not going to be speaking English in the other parts of Europe. So pick your culture, take your choice. Stacy says, yep, 200 years. Just lost the audio, she says. I hope that's just you. Oh, no, Nadia says, can't hear what's being said. Oh, right. Well, it looks like I've got audio going here. It says excellent connection up there. Anybody else? Robert says, thank you for the feedback. I will just refer back to that last podcast and implement the edits. Okay. Can you hear me? Right, okay. Rosemary says you had cut out, but you're back now. Okay, that's good then. Right. Don't know what happened there then. And Maggie says, okay, here now. Oh, well, I've got no, that's a bit odd. Sometimes things will freeze, but I've never actually had the aware of the sound cutting out. So Okay, Robert says, I had audio problems on one device but not on my phone. Oh, you're watching me in stereo. You're watching me in 2 different devices, huh? Nadia says she's still not hearing anything. Maybe try refresh. Reload, refresh. I don't know whether you can lip read. VG says back. Okay, maybe it's just worth refreshing the page if you can. Okay, maybe I just need to type that because, of course, Nadia, if you can't hear me, then you can't. Try, refreshing the page if you can't hear me. Okay, I'll type that in. Okay, April says, I hear only a second lost, and Robert says, refreshing my device fixed the audio. Okay, cool. Hopefully Nadia will be able to read that and she'll just reload. Right, okay, so on to the final image. Comes from Sophie. And, no it doesn't. Not there yet. Sorry, Rosemary. We're going to do Rosemary before we get to Sophie. So this one was from Rosemary. And Rosemary says, after several ventures into the garden and the woods to look for signs of change from summer into fall, I came away recharged physically and mentally. How I needed that fresh air and exercise. That's lovely to hear, Rosemary. And I think that's one of those things as well. Sometimes we just need to kind of get out with a camera, and getting out and moving about and getting into the countryside. It's always good for ourselves. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the exercise of doing it. She says that was the best outcome of the challenge for me, other than getting to see what other interesting things people submit. This image seems rather predictable, although at the moment it was a bit unexpected because the leaf had landed on a lone twig from many feet above. Right, okay, so this leaf, it hasn't come from this twig. This leaf has floated down and landed on this twig. Okay. So I managed to curl itself around and dry up there. I enjoyed editing the image to emphasise the leaf, although after I sent off the file to you, I tried lightening the overall exposure and now prefer that exposure level. It was not the case of sleeping on the edit. Sorry, it was a case of not sleeping on the edit, which you consistently remind us to do, and for good reason. Yeah, there was always that sense. If you're doing an edit for a photo, do the edit, leave it for a day or two, come back and look at it, and then quite often you can see whether if it's still satisfying, then you've done the right job. Sometimes you then see that you've maybe overcooked it, or you've not brightened it enough, or something else leaps out at you. Usually quite often in the first edit you get to a point where you're a bit too close to it. But yeah, you talk about the idea of lightening it a bit. I wasn't going to do any critiques, and I'm not really, but let's just not that one. Where am I? I want to go to. So you just talked about. So if we take the levels, and what we can see in the levels over here is the fact that everything's bunched up to the left, which is this sort of shadows. We're losing a bit of the light. So if I take this one on the right, and just drag it over a little bit, we can see that it lightens it up. And if we take it to that edge, that just brings out the background nicely. You could take it a little bit further. You can kind of brighten it up quite a bit. You've got to be careful about taking it too far, because then you start to lose some of the details and some of these bright patches become too bright. At which point what you might want to do is just use the mask, take that down to something like 35% and just touch down one or two little bits there or something like that. And you can see it's gone from that to that, brightens it up a little bit. And other things you can do if you want are play around with the dodge and burn. Oddly enough, I would not more burn than dodge. So the burn, I've got this set to burn the shadows at 3%. And if I just, actually I'll tell you what, let's just duplicate that layer so we can do a before and after. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run it over this leaf a little bit. And what it's going to do is it's just going to make the shadows slightly deeper. But what it also does in the process is it kind of makes the brown of the orange, or the sort of orange of the leaf, just stand out that little bit more, kind of sort of enriches the colour. And so you can see you go from that to that, and it kind of makes it pop a little bit. So sometimes playing around with a little bit of sort of selective dodge and burn can help again for that sort of standing out from the background. So we've gone from that to that. But yeah, lovely photo. Again, what you've done here, Rosemary, is you've taken all the bits that we've talked about with the idea of isolating the leaf, using a narrow depth of field, In fact, actually, you sent this to me, so it should be able to see. Yeah, f4.8. So a fairly wide aperture, narrow depth of field, which has allowed the rest of the trees in the background where the sunlight is hitting to have a lovely bouquet. It's green, contrasting against that kind of browny orange of the leaf, which then sort of stands out and against it. So yeah, nice crop there. I think that works well. So thank you for sending that one in. Smug points to you there, Rosemary. All right, okay. Oh, good. Nadia says she refreshed my device, and got the sound back. Excellent. April says a minimalism autumn photo. And Robert says that's a great idea. I would love to catch a leaf falling in motion. If you were going to do that, I would say you need a partner in crime. You need to get Anne to stand above you with a couple of leaves, drop them, and then just... Actually, if you're going to do something like that, this is just thinking about this, what you need to do is you're going to need to do this a few times, right? Work out where roughly you would like the leaf to be falling. You know, if necessary, get Anne or whatever to stand in front of you with the leaf where it's going to be, so that, and then adjust your focus. Adjust your focal point so that it's going to be on the right place. And then once you've got that, put your focus on manual rather than auto, so it stays there, so it doesn't readjust every time you go to click. And then get Anne or whoever to stand on a bench or a ladder or a stool or whatever, drop a couple of leaves down, and then as they kind of come into view, start clicking. Now you might need to fire off a few, you might need to do it several times, but do something like that. Make sure you've got the background right as well, that it's as out of focus as you want it. You've got a nice bouquet, you've got a nice colour contrast to the falling leaf. You're also going to need to get your shutter speed right, because you want to, if it's falling in motion, you're wanting to capture it sharply, you're going to need at least 250th of a second, maybe 400th of a second, maybe faster. But I would sort of play around with something like that. And if you do it and you get anything, then make sure you show us as well. I'd love to see how that turns out. Vinci says the withered leaf about to fall, nice one. Robert says awesome technique to make the leaf pop, and yeah, tasking Anne is not going to happen. Right, okay, get one of your dogs to sit there and open it with a mouthful of leaves and open on command. Yes. Or get a pal, get a friend, or work out some kind of engineering thing whereby you can, you've got some kind of thing that you can release a bunch of leaves, at the press of a button remotely. I'm sure you could. You're an intelligent guy. You're a creative man, Robert. You could work something out. I don't doubt for a moment. Right, okay, so where are we? So on to the final image then, and I wanted to show you this one from Sophie. Now, Sophie didn't really write much other than a seasonal change, and actually she doesn't get a lot of seasonal change around where she is, but this particular photo, and I just thought this was a lovely one to end on. This really, we've got backlight, got light coming through side light, as much side light really this is, but that side light is allowing some of the light to fall directly on the leaves and some of the light to fall the other side of the leaves. We've got the blues in the background. We've got this sort of the setting sun in the clouds over here. Got a nice bit of sort of side texture on the side light on the tree, which is allowing the branches to all kind of leap out. Definitely further on, lots of little twigs here which don't have the leaves anymore, but what a rich array of colours here, where we've got the greens, we've got the browns, we've got going into the reds, and it's a lovely spread, and I just thought this was a rather lovely photo, Sophie, and a good one to end on. So smug points for you there as well. So smug points to everyone really who sent in photos. Thank you to all of you for that. I think that was a lot of fun, and I really like the way that everybody's been kind of looking for something, trying to isolate their subject, find something which was particularly interesting, capturing their eye, and then sharing it with us. So that's been great. few comments here. Robert says, that's beautiful, Sophie. Karen says, just gorgeous. Nadia says, lovely picture. Rosemary says, that really captures the change. VG says, the sun behind the tree gives a nice effect combined with the blue sky. Stacy says, love the lighting. April loves the colours, and Meg says, that's a very lovely photo. Okay, so that's us for the seasonal challenge. Like I say, thank you to everybody who sent something in. That's been really fun and interesting, and hopefully a little bit inspiring for everyone. So, just to come back then to this idea of suggestions, please. That this is called Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, to help you to gain your understanding of whatever aspects of photography you like. Anything I can help you with, I will. So let me know. I will, like I said, I'll open up a thread on the Facebook page of Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, where you can put in your suggestions and ideas and thoughts, or if there's stuff you want, email me privately, or if you don't do Facebook, so kim@kimayres.co.uk, you can email me there. So what would you like to understand about photography? What are the areas where you feel you have less of a grip of, or that you feel you'd like to a bit more in depth on, or you're struggling with? And it doesn't matter if we've covered these topics before. We've covered an awful lot of topics in the last 2.5 years. I'm not expecting everybody to remember everything. I'm quite happy to kind of tailor this a little bit. In essence, with any photography, there's the aspects of, there's the camera, we have shutter speed, ISO, aperture, there's these kind of the technical settings. Not everybody has a full grip of understanding of what each of these do, or the best circumstances to use one over the other. Then there's the notion of the kind of composition, things like rule of thirds, leading lines, symmetry or asymmetry, how you kind of place things in the picture. Then there's notions of light, side light, backlight, front light, single light, multiple lights, coloured lights, natural light, artificial light, using flashes, using the sunlight, shadows, of course, shadows as they, so like shadows on people or shadows falling on things as well. Then there's the notion of all the different genres of photography, of landscapes, of architecture. It's a huge, wide subject. Part of what we love about photography is that it's pretty much never ending. But we all have areas that we are struggling with, or we didn't quite get properly, or we would like to know more of, or we feel that, so let me know these things. Email me, Facebook message me, put the stuff into the Facebook group. And what I will try and do then is as many of you and as many of these different aspects as you want. And so this will help me to hopefully tailor these podcasts to you a little bit more, to make so that you can kind of feel like actually what I'm talking about feels relevant to you. Right, okay. What else have we got here? April says, when the colours arrive here fully, perhaps I shall share with all. Yes, please do. Yeah, because you're in that kind of northeast part of the US. Hopefully you can get those you get those beautiful fall colours, April. Stacy says, I have to get back to photographing. I have a rescue dog named Bentley. I had to give him some time to get used to me. Lovely podcast. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Stacy. Nick Bath says, what about a live show? How you set up a still life or something like that? That's certainly a thought. It's a trickier one to do because of essentially the limitations that I have with where the camera is. And April's saying yes, she likes that idea as well. Okay, I will have a think about that. One. That's certainly a suggestion. But yeah, come up with the ideas. Yeah, I'm not going to start saying no to anything right at the minute. No, first rule is brainstorm. Say yes to everything. Let everything come in, and then sift through and edit. And April says, yes, we are the last part of that of New York that changes colours. Okay, well, great. Look for the southernmost part. Okay, great. Look forward to seeing what you got there. So next week, I haven't decided next week. Maybe it will depend a little bit on what suggestions I get. Start putting your suggestions in soon. Now, what I will say, though, is in 3 weeks' time, 3 weeks today, is the 30th of October, which is pretty much Halloween. It's the day before Halloween, but hey, let's have a Halloween challenge. I'm taking mindfulness of one or two suggestions I've had that maybe I do a bit too many challenges, but I certainly think one a month isn't going to harm. So in 3 weeks' time, Halloween, start thinking about it now. Start thinking, are you wanting to do something with pumpkins? Have you got a friend who does face makeup? Have you got kids who do costumes? Are you one of these who dresses your dog in a little vampire outfit? Do you do the whole kind of Day of the Dead thing? Or, for VG in India, you seem to be in kind of major festival season at the moment. Are there a kind of, festival that tends to be around end of October, beginning of November, anything like that? Or I know you're getting in some at the moment as well. In fact, actually, I will just say that for anybody who is on Facebook, VG put in, there's a festival, several-day festival that's being celebrated at the moment, where one of the things they do is they get out a lot of these figures of deities and kind of fill the, all the spaces and shelves and stuff with that. And she's put up some videos of some of the bits there, so that VG has. So if you're on Facebook, go to the Facebook group Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, and do check them out, because they're really amazing. So thank you very much for putting those in and sharing some of that with us, VG. That's really appreciated. Right, Stacy says she loves the challenge. VG says, yes, let's do a Diwali challenge. Is Diwali? I know it's spelt with a W, but I'm never sure whether it's a W or a V sound. All about lights. Yes, that sounds good. April says about a pumpkin contest. Yeah, if you want to go for like I said, I think a Halloween challenge can definitely include the pumpkins, and get around to carving them however you like. Stacy also says Day of the Dead. Right, so that's pretty much us. So if you found these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining, you would like to support them as well as inviting your friends, do think about the buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres, one of the other ways you can do it. I look forward to seeing you all next week, and next week of course is a critique week as well. So if you have images that you would specifically like feedback on, next week is an opportunity to do that. Stick in your image, whatever image it's either, again, email me or go to the Facebook group, leave your image, tell me what your sticking point is with that particular photo, whether it's, again, a particular aspect of composition or lighting or something you're struggling with, or even the narrative, the genre, how you were struggling perhaps with how to really nail what it was you were going for, and I will do my best to help. So look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you to everybody who sent everything in, take care. Cheerio.